In this video, I'll be filling these books up with some Canadian dimes. Hey everybody, it's Rob with RobFindsTreasure, and I figured it's time for me to get my dimes into my dime albums. Now, I am not in Canada. I don't really collect a lot of Canadian coins, but throughout my hunts, some of my mail calls, and of course my Coinstar finds, you name it, I have got my fair share of Canadian dimes. So my plan today is to sort all of these Canadian dimes by decade and then get them in the proper spots in the album. Now, once I have them by decade, I'm going to choose the very best one that I have to put in the book. All the duplicates will go back in the jar. Now, unfortunately, my books only go from 1858 to 1989. You can see with my collection, it's not very extensive, but once I get the book set up, then I can start focusing on the ones that I need. That being said, I got all the silver laid out in front of me, but we're not going to do that first. We're going to start with everything after 1967 or 68. There's a transition year there where the silver started going between being silver and being nickel, and we'll figure that out here as we go along. But in the meantime, let me get this jar first separated from 1990 on, and then by decade from 1989 and back. I'll loop you in once I've done that, including the silver and the flipped. All right, we've got them sorted. A lot of 1996 and newer. I did make a stack for 95 and less because the book does have some holes in it. I don't know if there's any varieties in those years, but I will put those aside for now, maybe fill some slots. There's my 80s, my 70s, my 60 silver, my 60 non-silver, my 50s, my 40s, and I even have a couple 30s. So there's going to be a lot of holes in the album. I expect that, but we'll start working backwards. I guess we'll kick it off with the 1989 and earlier book and see how many of these holes we can fill. Now, I'm not totally familiar with some of these varieties, but I will definitely do my research to make sure that I plug in the right dime into the right hole. All right, from 95 and back, it's pretty simple. I'm missing 1991 and 1982. But we have a pretty good example of all the other dimes. No varieties to look for. Pretty much the best one I had, I plugged in the spot. Now we'll work on the 70s, and once again, from 70 to 79, no real varieties. So we'll plug in those in and see what we got. So for the 70s, we got 79, 78. We're missing 77. We got 76, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I actually had a couple of 1970s, considering only 5.2.5 million minted. I'll take it. Now let's move on to the 60s. Couple without silver, and then we start silver after that. Okay, the 60s are done here. We had a 69. I had two examples of the 68 nickel with the Philadelphia reading that is more of a square profile to the reading around the rim. And then we had a couple to choose from the 68 nickel for the Ottawa reading, which is more of a rounded profile on the reads. So it was pretty easy to distinguish between the two. Obviously, there was a one or two that were a little bit more worn and it was hard to tell, but I'm fairly certain I got the right reading in the right spot. Chose the best 68 silver, the best 67 silver, that's the centennial commemorative. No 66s. This 65 is a toner, but it has good detail, so I kept it. And then I kept an obverse, just a good example of one. We had a 64, beautiful 63, and a 62. No 61, 28 million minted, and we had a 60 in there as well. Now we're going to get to where it gets scarce, and let's see what we have in the 50s. I only have a small stack of them. So the 50s were pretty rough. No 59. I had a 58 and 57. No 56. Did have a beat up 55. No 54. I did have a 53 with a shoulder fold. And I used the other one that has the obverse just to go ahead and make the Elizabeth II, the laureate obverse showing. And I had a 52. No 51s to check for any doubling. And no 50s. Now up to the 40s. And I did put one of my 52 George VI obverses without the end IMP on the front, just so I'd have a spot for it there. Let's see how we have in the 40s, although I only have like 3 of them, so it's going to be pretty quick. So in the 40s, I had a 49, a 47, did not have the maple leaf. It does have some damage where the maple leaf would be, but I don't see the maple leaf, so we're going to call it without. And a 41, only 8.7 million into those, so that's kind of cool. Now I know one of these in the 30s is pretty slick, and one has a date of 1932, but the other one, I won't even know what it is. I don't think I'll be able to get a date on that one, but let me go ahead and get my 30s album out next and plug those in. So obviously my 1936 and back all the way to 1858 Canadian dime album's pathetic, but I did manage to put in the 1932, and it's not a bad looking dime. And because there's no date decipherable on this one, I'm just going to use the obverse as the obverse filler. I tried to look up the broadleaves for small leaves. I tried to look up the Victorian leaves for broadleaves. It's just too worn on the back to decipher any of that. No idea what year that is, so we're just going to use the obverse so we have a spot filled with it. Man, I have a lot of work to do to get this dime album filled up, at least for the oldies. The good news is I was able to fill quite a bit of my more modern, if you will, Canadian dime album, and that makes me happy. Obviously, I can continue to grab the 96, 97, 98, 99, 2000, and so on if I wanted to do that. But I'm going to wait till I get the new album when it is released in the next year or two, who knows when, and I'll do that then. In the meantime, I'll look for filling these holes up. We've got a lot of work to do, but it makes me excited of another project. Hopefully you enjoyed this Canadian dime hunt with me. If you did, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. And as always, everyone, happy hunting, and thanks for watching. I said earlier I was missing a 1982 dime, and I forgot. I have a 1982 uncirculated set with an 82 dime in it, but I won't be taking it out to plug it in there. Still, I do have an 82, and that makes me happy. This is a quick update to the Canadian dime video. When going through my mail, I forgot that I had won a Canadian dime lot, and I have some more Canadian dimes that are silver to add to the collection. We've got a couple from 1912, handful from 14. We've got a 17, couple of 18s, a handful of 19s, a few 1928s, and a 1931. They're all going to fit on this page because this page goes from 1911 through 1936. Let me go ahead and get these on this page and update the dime album once again. All right, we've got them in the album, and that looks a little bit better on that page. Blanks on those though, but I'm excited about that. We'll take the less than desirable silver dimes and add them to the silver dime jar.